Even if you don't know anything else about China, like me when I moved there, if you're listening to this podcast, you've most likely heard of the Great Wall. It's often cited as one of the wonders of the world, and not without reason. It is genuinely a marvel of human workmanship. Like any structure of this scale, though, the Great Wall's construction was not without human cost, and this echoes through the pages of history and cultural memory alike. Today, we'll look at a widely known folktale that tells of one woman's relationship with the Great Wall, one of China's 4 great folktales. Join me, Jaer Christie, as I explore the hidden stories that shape the world on The Mythographist, Myths of Mainland China. Lady Meng Jiang. In the days when the Middle Kingdom is truly becoming one kingdom, where before it had been many small nations, there lives a young woman named Meng Jiang. Meng Jiang is beautiful and industrious, and she lives with her father, who is growing quite old. Someday she hopes to be married, but she is happy to care for her father and their home. As it happens, though, one day she looks up from her work to see a man in the bushes staring at her. She screams for her father, but the man comes out from hiding and apologizes. "I am sorry, my lady," the man says, "but I was walking by and caught sight of you through the bushes, and I could not help but stop and stare at your beauty." "Why did you come this way, young man?" asks Meng Jiang's father. "I do not know you from the village, and I have seen every face for miles around." "I am seeking a place to earn my living," says the man. "My name is Wan Qiliang, and there is no work for me in my hometown." So, Meng Jiang's father puts Wan Qiliang to work, and before long, Meng Jiang and Qiliang fall in love. They are married happily in the town, and Meng Jiang cares both for her husband and her father. But their happiness does not last long. Only days after their wedding, a regiment of imperial soldiers comes to the village. "All people, hear these words, the declaration of the Qin Emperor, the sovereign ruler appointed by heaven," says the army captain. "Barbarians invade from the north, and hordes of enemies come from the west, so the Emperor, in his divine wisdom, has seen fit to build a great wall that shall stretch from one end of our nation to the other, and protect us from all intruders. All men who are of age and able-bodied are hereby ordered to come with us and join our ranks, for we go to do a mighty work for our great nation." "Who is this emperor?" ask some of the villagers. "Why should we serve one who we do not even know?" But the soldiers search every house, and they force every man capable of work to come with them, including Qiliang. And they march out of the town that very day. "When may our husbands and sons and fathers return?" weeps Meng Jiang to the captain as he leaves. "And when shall I see my husband again?" But he gives her no answer. Many months pass, and no word comes, none return from the building of the wall. Autumn comes, and leaves fall from the trees, the chill of winter draws close, and Meng Jiang's tears only increase when her father falls ill. And though she tends to him with every waking moment, finally Meng Jiang's father passes away. After he has been buried, and she has mourned him, Meng Jiang says, "Who knows when this sadness will pass from our land? It surely will not be sooner than winter. I shall go and bring my husband clothes for the coming cold." And the people of the village try to stop her, fearing that the worst has already happened, but Meng Jiang is insistent, and all their words cannot stop her. Meng Jiang has never left her village, for in those days there are many dangers along the roads, and few in all the lands travel far from home. But she sets off down the same road that the army did when it left with her husband, and travel she does. At every town she comes to, she asks about the army and which way they went, and at each town they point her farther down the road. At last, after many days of walking, Meng turns a corner and she sees the wall her husband has been building. She gasps, for it is truly unlike anything she has seen. Like a great stone dragon resting on the tops of the mountains, as far as she can see, the wall runs along the hilltops and stretches to the horizon. It is taller than 3 men standing on each other's shoulders. It is wide enough that 4 men can walk side by side along its length. She runs over to the men working on it and asks them, "Have you heard of the men from my village? Where are they?" And like the towns she has passed through, the laborers point her on, and on she goes. Autumn has passed now, and winter races down from the north, more deadly than any invader. Meng shivers, and finally she comes to the section of the wall where the men of her village work. "Where is Wan Qiliang?" she calls to them, "for I have brought him warm clothes for the coming cold. Where is my husband?" And their faces fall, and Meng sees there are so few men she knows, and her heart feels fear. "Lady Meng, say the workers she knows, your husband worked hard and wished every day to complete his work, that he might return to you, but it has already been weeks since he died." "How can this be?" Meng cries. "I have no father, and I have borne no son, and now my husband too has been taken from me. What am I to do?" And Meng weeps bitterly. What else can she do? "Please," she begs the men at last, "tell me where his body is buried, that I might lay his bones to rest with those of my family." "Lady Meng," the workers say sorrowfully, "the emperor who commands our labor is a harsh and demanding man. The soldiers who oversee us are cruel and unjust. All those who have died, their bones we have built into this very wall, alongside the stones, that the work might finish faster." And upon hearing this news, Meng falls to the ground at the side of the road and weeps still more. Her tears flow like a river, and her wails rise to the heavens. None who pass by as they go to and fro are unmoved by her plight. For days and days, Lady Meng weeps without ceasing, and her tears gather and gather into a torrent, so many that together they flow down the hills in a great river, and this river grows so mighty as it rushes against the great wall that suddenly there is a deafening crash, and the great wall itself falls down. For leagues and leagues in either direction the wall crumbles. Stones roll down the hillsides, and bones from the thousands and thousands of workers who have died spill from the structure. And all who see it, workers and soldiers and passers-by alike, are aghast. "So many have died," cries Meng as she gazes across the wreckage. "How numerous are their bones! How am I ever to find those of my husband?" And she pricks her finger with a needle and prays to heaven, "May the blood of my body fly to the bones of my beloved." And when she flicks her finger, the drops of blood fly across the field of bones and fall upon a skeleton that she recognizes, the remains of Wan Qiliang. And she gathers his bones and weeps upon them. As is the way of rulers, the Qin emperor hears news of the wall's collapse, and he comes to see for himself, enraged and ready to punish whoever is responsible. And when he hears the truth of what has happened, how a woman has disrupted his construction project simply to mourn of one man, he grows angrier still. But when he sees the lady Meng, he is struck by her beauty. "I did not expect a lowly commoner to be so beautiful," he mutters to his advisor. "Perhaps unpleasantness can be avoided." Then, to Meng he says, "You have captivated me from the moment I laid eyes upon you, and you could do me no greater blessing than to be my wife." Meng is disgusted with the emperor, of course. Does he not know why she weeps? But she is a clever woman, and despite her sorrow, she sees an opportunity. "O great emperor," she says, "I will be your wife, but I have 3 conditions. First, you must give my husband, who has died in service to you, a royal burial. Second, you yourself must mourn his passing. And third, we are to be married upon this very wall, where it meets the sea." The emperor sighs to his advisor. "I do not wish to give such honors to a peasant, much less one who is already dead. But this woman is very beautiful, and how much trouble I will be spared by simply agreeing to her wishes." And to Meng he says, "Certainly all these things I will do, only to make you my wife." So, true to his word, the Qin emperor gives Wan Qiliang a royal funeral. And, true to his word, the Qin emperor himself mourns Wan Qiliang in the royal way. And finally, true to his word, the Qin emperor prepares a royal wedding at his capital in Qinhuangdao, on the beginning of the Great Wall, where its hewn stone rises from the mighty sea. When the day of the wedding comes, all the emperor's court is gathered on the Great Wall by the seaside in Qinhuangdao. And just as they are about to be wed, Lady Meng breaks away from the ceremony, and she runs to the end of the wall. "Cruel and terrible emperor," she shouts at the Qin emperor, "whether you are divine or not, your thirst for power will be your undoing. For you know nothing of the suffering of your people that you have caused, nor of their sorrows and hardships, and an emperor who knows not of these things will never truly rule." And the lady Meng casts herself from the top of the Great Wall, and she tumbles into the sea, and it swallows her up. Although this story now takes place during the Qin Emperor's rule, when he conscripted countless laborers to connect existing fortifications into one great wall, the origins of this folktale go back at least several hundred years before him. The simple tale of a woman mourning her husband who has fallen in battle. The story has evolved and grown over the millennia, possibly combining 2 different folktales, and in its modern form, linking Meng Jiang's tears with the very real collapse of a portion of the Great Wall in modern Shandong province, while also serving as a moral tale that speaks out against tyranny. It's much more subversive than it may seem at first glance, but that's for someone with better credentials and sources than I have to talk about. Lady Meng has a number of variations. In some versions, she's born from a hulu gourd that grows on the fence between 2 old men, who quarrel endlessly until her magical appearance compels them to work together to raise her as 2 fathers. Other versions don't even mention her origin. There are a number of variants on her husband's name, too. Fan Qiliang, or Fan or Wan Xiliang, or just Qi Liang, and sometimes he's a deserter from the army, while other times he's a creep who looks through the bushes and sees Meng while she's bathing. And sometimes he's both a creep and a deserter. Certain tellings give Meng a secret admirer among the townspeople who feels betrayed and spiteful at her marriage to Wan Xiliang, This admirer turns Wan Xiliang, who is here a deserter, back over to the army, who take him away. Some versions of the story end with the collapse of the Great Wall, and sometimes Meng Jiang is also Meng Po, the Lady of Forgetfulness in the underworld who helps souls prepare for reincarnation. I've included the parts of the story that seem to be the most universal. Probably the most heartbreaking aspect of this story is Meng Jiang's famous lament, "I have no father, no husband, no son. Who am I and what can I do?" This part wasn't written by me. This is a very specific part of the story. As was the case in many cultures, women in many dynasties of ancient China were little more than property, and their role in society was entirely dependent upon the men in their life. In fact, Meng Jiang's original name in this story is essentially just widow. The story might be talking about how tragic her loss and situation was, but it might also be an indirect protest or commentary against the condition that women in general typically found themselves in. The Qin Emperor, the emperor credited with unifying China, and the same emperor mentioned in our previous episode who was indirectly responsible for the events of the Dragon Boat Festival story, didn't build the whole wall. He neither started it nor finished it. What he did do, though, was conscript untold numbers of workers to build bits and pieces of wall to connect the pieces that were already built. And, of course, the wall was largely unsuccessful at keeping out invaders, even as work continued on it over intervals over the next 2,000 years. Ironically, however, the project did succeed in unifying a nation against its cruel ruler. This unrest laid the groundwork for the uprising that would usher in the next dynasty. And the Great Wall, wow. Now, you can't actually see it from space, but that doesn't make it any less awesome. The pictures are incredible, but the actual thing is just mind-blowing. If you're in the area, or even if you're not, do yourself a favor and go see it. I had the privilege of visiting the wall in 6 different locations, including the west end at Guan Pass in Gansu and the east end in Qinhuangdao, Hebei. The historical Great Wall did not actually extend to the ocean, which is a bit of a plot hole, but it has been restored so that it does. My favorite portion of the wall, though, is Gubeikou in Miyun County, an hour or two outside of Beijing, where you can see the wall crumbling but stretching out across the mountains into the far distance, just as I've described it here. I can't recommend it strongly enough. At the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that this was one of China's 4 great folktales. Over the course of this summer, we'll be looking at the other 3, The Butterfly Lovers, Lady Whitesnake, and The Cowherd and the Weaver Maiden. Make sure you're subscribed to be notified automatically when the next episode is out. Thanks so much for listening. This episode of The Mythographist was written, narrated, and produced by me, Jaer Christie, with research by myself and Elena Tung, and music by Xiaoqing Luna Li, and from the compilation The Essence of Famous Chinese Folk Music. Be sure to check out the rest of the episodes on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And as always, if there's a story that you grew up with that has shaped the way you see the world, I hope you'll share it. We all have so many stories to tell, and the more of them we hear, the more we'll understand each other, because we can't learn if we don't listen. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on The Mythographist.